Hey folks,
Yeah.
this is Mark Maya. I'm a photographer and educator from North Carolina here on the East Coast in the US. And today I'm here with David Heidrich. I think I'm saying your name, David. Is that how you say your
It's
last?
it it's David.
David, yeah. So I apparently butchered
David.
it. Excuse me. Excuse
Oh
me.
no, that's okay.
Yeah. Very well. So I'm here with David, and this is a series I'm doing where I find other photographers that have inspired me around the world, and I just do what's called an artist talk with them, and I have a conversation about real life human stuff. Photography, yes. Gear, yes. Um, all the stuff that we normally see, but at the same time, we're still humans, and we're doing this thing together. We're all in the same boat. So this is like sitting down and having a fresh cup of coffee with your favorite photographer. So I'm here with David today. And David, how are you doing today?
Good, great. How are you? Thanks for
Doing good.
having me.
Yeah. My pleasure. My pleasure. So tell us where you are and what you're working on right now.
Okay, so currently I am in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. But I'm originally from Germany. You might hear the accent, a weird last name. Yeah, and I'm working as a wedding photographer mainly right now with my wife, who also runs her own photography business, shooting families and babies and that kind of stuff.
Right on. Right on. How long have you guys
Yeah.
been shooting?
We started about 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now, when we got married. She's Canadian, I'm German, and she got to pick the country, so
Ah,
Canada was, which I don't mind. That's awesome.
sure. That makes sense. Um, right on. Um, let's see. So can can you guys, or David, can you talk about just some of your beginnings as a photographer, and how you got started, where you're from? I know you have a graphic design background. Can you talk about that
Yeah,
a little bit?
absolutely. Just stop me if I go on too long or it gets too
Sure.
boring or I get off track. Okay, so as you mentioned, my background is in graphic design, and that's kind of like I never had this story where my grandpa gave me this camera when I was 5 years old. That never happened. I was never into photography before I went to graphic design school, and I had to take this mandatory.
I'm doing a online meeting right now. Can I talk to you in just a second? Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. Okay, where was I? Yeah, so I had to take this mandatory.
One of your students?
No, with another artist.
Okay. When will you be free?
Just probably about 20 minutes. Okay. Hey, sorry, folks. Yeah. Sorry, David. So you were talking about your graphic design background there.
Go.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah. My apologies. I had someone come in during our meeting. Had to
Okay.
had to postpone that. So you got a graphic design background. I know my wife who works with me. She also has a graphic design background. You feel like that's helped you transition and come in as a photographer?
Absolutely. So I
For
had to
sure.
take this mandatory photography course where we started like super old school. No, we were even the first year we weren't even allowed to work digital black and white film, which I think very, very, very basic, but very good to get. Yeah, get kind of your foundation. And from there on, I was really just doing it as a hobby, and I started getting into actually shooting bands at concerts for fun. I thought that was interesting.
Sure.
And then right out of school, I started working in the music industry as a graphic designer, doing advertising, and the company I worked for did all the photography in-house, and they lost like 2 years into me working there. They lost their main photographer. I had kind of been helping in this studio a bit because I wanted some stuff, and they were shooting medium format digital, which I thought was super cool.
Sure.
To get my hands on one of those.
Right on.
Around with it, super into that.
Yeah. So you do shoot film.
Yes, I do. I guess I'm a hybrid shooter.
Sure.
Yeah. So after their photographer left, they couldn't find someone fast enough to run the department for a year. Mainly, it was all studio photography, product photography. They got all of their artists in, which was really cool. So I got to, for example, work with Adam Clayton from U2, which a little bit.
That's pretty cool. That's a big deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean afterwards, I think those experiences are awesome.
Yeah.
If you can meet and work with people that you think are super, and then they're actually they're super nice and not much different than you and me.
Sure.
Yeah. So and after that, so after about 3 years, I moved to Canada, and the area I moved to is not, I don't know, the music business is not really the thing. So my wife's brother actually asked me to shoot their wedding, which I was like, you're crazy. I've never shot a wedding. The wedding industry where I grew up it's not even an industry. It's like very, very different. I know one of my cousins, they have one wedding photo and it's totally normal. And
Sure.
It's like almost like the 80s studio posed. It's hilarious. Anyways, and then moving to North America, where it's a huge industry, people spend so much, such a boost. Was very into. I shot. That's kind of, I guess, the cliche beginning that I had, shooting a relative's wedding, and then another one. I remember before the first wedding, I was like, oh, I guess I should buy a flash. So I went the day before. Went to the camera store, bought a flash, no idea what I was doing. Because I really was only doing studio work where I almost, I don't know, followed the same recipe.
Sure.
So yeah, it was a huge learning curve. And then I don't know, after that I was like, this is actually a lot of fun.
We kind of lost you there for a little bit, but I'll take this opportunity actually just to ask you.
It was very interesting to shoot weddings.
There, David. Okay, well, hey, David, you still there with us?
Yep.
Cool. Sorry, kind of cut out there for a second. I'll take this opportunity.
Yeah, I am.
I'll take the opportunity just to interrupt you with one of the viewer questions. So, going over to shooting weddings, which
Yes.
I know that your audience and my audience are very interested in this. So, someone asked, how in the world do you emphasize getting quality bride and groom shots after the wedding when all they're worried about is getting to the bar? Is their question. That's from Brenna.
After the wedding. So do you late or?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's kind of all she said there. So I guess photographers maybe who are maybe talking about maybe in the reception. Let's see. Yeah, that's all she says. So I don't know. Respond in any way.
Okay, so Let's means like after the and you shoot indoors where it's so
Yep.
if you, I guess you looked at my work, and it's very bright, and I never use any off-camera flash, which is probably partially because of my studio experience, and I kind of just wanted to do something completely different, so I moved away from all artificial light. But it's very unrealistic to be the natural photographer when you're in a really dark reception. So I definitely use a lot of off-camera flash at receptions, and I don't know. I think you just have to go with the party.
Sure.
If they're, if they're having a good time, and it's just gonna look different. It's gonna have a different look. You just have to make it look the best. Sure. If they're drunk, you just have to make it look awesome, no matter what.
Right on. That's a great response.
Yeah, you just, I don't know. I think with the style, you have so many options with off-camera flash, to make things look much, much better than they actually looked.
Sure. For sure. Somebody else, let's see, Brooke Reed, she said, can you share some shooting tips for a small ceremony if you're the only shooter and don't have a second shooter?
For a small ceremony. So actually, it's kind of interesting because I every year my setup gets smaller and smaller. So just sold which I thought is the ultimate ceremony lens, and you have.
Yeah, I think you cut out when you said that. What did you sell?
Okay, so let me repeat. So a few weeks ago, I actually sold my 70 to 200 lens, which I considered the wedding lens.
Sure.
And especially for ceremonies. But I don't like carrying a lot of gear around. And I've actually been shooting with my 51.2 almost, I would say 99% of the time for all of last season. And it totally works. I think if you're mindful of people, and you don't get too close in their faces, it's totally possible. I think even with which usually are fairly short, just plan out your shots. Right. There's a few shots that you want to get, even though there might be things happening that you can't plan.
Sure.
I always say the more of a plan you have, the more creative you can be. And then if you got your 10, 20 shots that you planned for, then you're way more free to, then I can stand over here because I know I got the shot from the center aisle.
Sure.
So I think it's totally manageable to shoot small and short ceremonies.
Sure. Right on. Well, thank you, Brenna, or let's see, Brooke, for that question. And thanks, David, for answering it in such a way spontaneously. Going back to some of my questions, what might you consider maybe one of the biggest or a couple biggest challenges working your way up as a wedding photographer in the past few years?
I think the biggest and in general is putting value on your work. I think most artists struggle with that a lot, which hugely influences how wedding photographers run their business. I think that's the main reason why we see so many really, cheap photographers that I have no idea how they run a business.
Sure.
Or make a profit, which I totally understand. You have to start somewhere, but I think we put very little value on our work, which shows up in how we run our business. And I think that's definitely the biggest struggle, because if you don't think you're that good, it's very hard to be motivated. And you always look at all the big guys, and they're doing workshop every 2 weeks and, travel the world, and everything looks super, super awesome. And you're just in, some small town shooting another wedding in a church basement.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely been the biggest struggle to put.
Right on. Where do you think photography is going in the next few years, personally? Where do you see it going, and maybe yourself and your role in it?
Oh, you tell me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think overall, what we all think of that, what's the next big thing, now in terms of, marketing and social media, everybody's running to Snapchat, and Facebook is kind of dead for a lot of people. And so it's like, I don't know. I don't know what's the next big thing. I think people who worry about that should probably, I don't know. I find if your work is really timeless, in a way that you feel like you don't have to chase trends, I think that gives you a lot of, peace of mind. And you can go a little bit more relaxed about those things, and you don't have to, be the squirrel who's just, going back and forth and jumping and trying everything at once.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, on that same kind of area, which I consider the same area. So understanding that we're not, we are humans. How do you stay connected, being a popular wedding photographer who's working all the time and making art, and as an artist, how do you stay grounded and connected to yourself, your partner, your family, relationships, and just the other humans around you?
Okay, that's very interesting, because even though, like in the last year especially, I had a few features and interviews and that kind of thing, which is really surreal in a sense, because I still feel like I'm not, like, I wouldn't consider myself famous or really well known or anything. I'm just like, how the heck did they pick me? Which I think that itself keeps you grounded pretty easily. The other one would probably be my wife, who, if I think too greatly of myself, just kicks my butt.
Sure. Same here.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still very, very, very strange. Even you asking me, doing this live interview thing on video, which I've never done before.
Yeah.
It's very cool, and I think it's very motivating when that happens, and you can totally get a glimpse of, what if you would be really famous and this stuff would just get so huge. And I think, it's probably pretty easy to lose touch with reality and kind of know where you come from.
Yeah.
And, turn into probably a not so nice person, because you're pretty full of yourself, or it's very easy to get there, I think. But yeah, I think for me, just keep working and getting better at my craft and my art. It's pretty not every job, not every creative shoot that I do is the most amazing thing. And, I still get rejected a lot, submitting stuff to blogs. It's not all roses. That's for sure. It's hard work. It's a lot of hard work. And I think that, definitely keeps you from coasting or thinking, oh yeah, I made it, I'm famous.
Sure.
People love me on Instagram and I got this interview and that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope that answers.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, so switching back over to our audience questions, somebody was asking, how do you get such sharp photos if you're not using an on-camera flash? Or I'm sorry, yeah, yeah. Somebody was asking if you don't have the on-camera flash. Or I guess just in general, how are you getting such sharp photos? How are you doing that?
Okay, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't even consider my photos being super sharp. Let me just, maybe explain my setup a little bit. So I shoot film and digital, both. So for digital, I shoot with a Canon 5D Mark III and a 15mm 1.2, which is my go-to lens for almost unless I'm in a super, super tiny room, say for getting ready photos at a wedding, I will switch to 35, to Sigma 35. And I actually shoot my 50, if I can, I shoot at 1.2. And I know compared to 30mm Sigma quality great. It's not the sharpest lens in the world. At 1.2, you get horrible chromatic aberration. But the main reason I shoot this lens is for the look. It feels, or I feel like it gets me the closest look to a medium format lens. And for that setup, I shoot a Mamiya AFD2 with a 80mm lens, which is pretty close, I guess, to a 50 and lets me match digital and film. So you almost can't tell.
Sure.
I can't tell most of the times. So yeah, I wouldn't consider them being super, super sharp, which I love. The feel, I don't know, of not being perfect.
Right.
Especially, maybe it's because I come from this studio setting where everything, with digital medium format and lights and everything has to be super crazy sharp because it gets blown up, to gigantic sizes. I don't know, that quality.
Right on.
I just love the film look. I love how it's a little bit raw. It has a different feel to it. So yeah, I actually don't care too much about super duper sharpness.
Sure. Yeah, same here. I think you use Maston Labs for your digital work, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah, good.
Yeah, and
there, David. Yeah.
You cut out there for a second.
Yeah, I think we're cutting out. I think we're back now, though. Yeah. So we were.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So I know. I started out with Visco. That's kind of a few years ago, and you said you do Maston Labs. Now I just make my own custom stuff. And sell it as well. But yeah. So. Yeah, so you said you're a hybrid shooter. Some buddy on my website, Abby Hearn, she was actually asking what's your favorite gear. You've kind of already gone over that. Let's see. She said what routines do you? Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe one thing for the gear, which I think I could get rid of everything that I have except for those two cameras and those two lenses, and it would still work. And the only additional thing that I absolutely love is a one-step diffuser panel, where with all the high noon weddings and horrible harsh midday light as a natural light shooter, if you're in a situation where you don't have a lot of trees, a one-step diffuser is your absolute best friend. That's probably the best non-camera item that I bought in the past 3 years, maybe. Okay, you're cutting out. Sorry, I don't hear you.
About now. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, had to turn my mic off. Google Hangouts are sometimes wild. Yeah, anyways, what I was saying, we do have to cut this one short, folks. I know most of them are about an hour long, but let's see. I do just want to say thank you, David, so much for spending time with me and our audiences and just talking to us a little more intimately about some of your work and your processes, and really appreciate it. If you're watching this on my blog, you can actually just follow David on Instagram, Facebook, or on his website or Twitter right down below. And please connect with him and me on the social networks and all. David, you got anything else you want to say or maybe ask me?
Ask you. What's the biggest thing you've learned from this whole project of, you know, hanging out with other photographers, especially the ones that you look up to?
Right. I think talking with other artists like this, it's a good way to build empathy. Generally, it helps me and my students, because I'm an educator. It helps me as an artist, but also helps my students just understand what it is to be a professional artist in the real world, you know, and what that looks like. I think that's like we were saying, like that continually evolves, you know. So I think it's important for that conversation to continue, and for not only me to have that conversation, but for my students to also be part of that conversation, for other artists to be part of that conversation. I think it just helps, you know. So it's an interesting journey to be able to talk with professional artists, but also try to teach kids and young people and myself to progress as an artist as well. So that's probably the biggest thing for me.
Absolutely.
For sure. So, our time is up. Thank you so much, David. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, you guys have the link. So have a wonderful day.